All right, so I have a short encyclical for you this weekend. It's a historic document dated back to the times in Ireland where there was that massive potato shortage, the potato famine, that led to, the Irish suffering a great deal. And this letter was the response from the Vatican to the bishops of Ireland, trying to get them to, engage in almsgiving, organize almsgiving to relieve the situation of the people there, as well as to organize a prayer campaign. Now, I want to point out that this is a bit of a different response than we're seeing in our present time. Bear that in mind, and, maybe somebody in a position of authority will hear this letter and be reminded of how the church responds to things. Or I can keep dreaming. Anyway, here is the encyclical. PRAEDECESSORES Nostros, encyclical of Pope Pius IX on the situation of the Church in Ireland. To all the patriarchs, primates, archbishops, and bishops, Pope Pius IX, venerable brothers, health, and the apostolic blessing. You who have studied and deepened the history of the Church certainly know that the Roman pontiffs, our predecessors, have always dedicated every assiduous and conscientious care to the Christian people in order to benefit them in any way. Nor do you ignore that this salutary and most noble commitment not only included the spiritual advantages towards the Christian people, but was also aimed at alleviating the public calamities that sometimes struck them. This assertion is confirmed in the documents of the ancients, and more recent times, and in our memory and that of our fathers. In fact, to those who could or should be better off exercising this paternal concern of the soul, aimed at reviving all Christians, if not those to whom the Catholic faith teaches, be fathers and teachers of all Christians, with whom was it more logical for the unfortunate to take refuge, if not with those who, placed at the top of the Church, had long demonstrated and proved by the facts to be driven by the love of Christ? Moved by this shining example of our predecessors and by the propensity of our will, as soon as we learned that the Kingdom of Ireland was suffering from a very serious shortage of grain, and was relying on charity for the supply of other food, and that the people were dealing with a terrible affliction caused by this shortage, we immediately dedicated every effort, as far as we were allowed, to help those people in danger. Therefore, in this our city we have announced public prayers to be raised to God, and we have exhorted the clergy, the Roman people, and all the other residents of Rome to bring help to Ireland. Consequently, the part of the money offered by us willingly and the part collected in Rome, compatibly with the constraints of the times, were sent as help. In truth, up to now we have received disturbing letters from Ireland which news of the aforementioned calamities are reported, calamities which still persist on that island and are even worse. Such information afflicts our soul with incredible pain, and pushes us to rush again to the aid of those people. What, in fact, we must not try to revive that population struggling amid so many dangers, since we know how much devotion of the clergy and people of Ireland has always been towards the Apostolic See, how in very difficult times the tenacity of those people in professing the Catholic faith has shown, with what efforts the clergy of Ireland have worked for the spread of the Catholic faith, even in very remote regions of the earth. May St. Peter be honored and understood, whose dignity, in the words of Leo the Great, is not lacking in an unworthy air. See St. Leo's Sermons, number 2. Therefore, after having seriously reflected on this serious matter, and having listened to the opinion of not a few venerable brothers, our cardinals of the Holy Roman Church, we have decided to write to you, venerable brothers, this letter to examine together with you the urgent needs of the people of Ireland. Of course, we all suggest to you that in the dioceses or regions under your jurisdiction, as you describe, as was done in the past in the city of Rome, for 3 public days to be recited in churches and other specific sacred places, to pray to God, Father of mercy, to free the people of Ireland from this situation, and to remove such a great misfortune also from the other kingdoms and regions of Europe, And for this to happen more quickly and more advantageously, we grant a 7-year indulgence to those who in any way intervene with those prayers, to those who will participate in the whole Triduum by reciting the same prayers, and during the week of the Triduum, after having purified themselves with the sacrament of penance, they will approach the most holy sacrament of the Eucharist. Our apostolic authority we grant the plenary indulgence. Moreover, venerable brothers, we especially recommend to you love that you urge with your exhortations the people under your jurisdiction to relieve the Irish people by giving alms. We also know that you do not need to be explained to you the value of almsgiving and the copious fruits that derive from it in order to obtain the clemency of God most excellent. You know the praises paid to almsgiving, wisely by the most holy fathers of the Church, and particularly by St. Leo the Great in several of his sermons. You also have the famous letter, written by St. Cyprian, martyr, Bishop of Carthage, to the bishops of Numidia. It contains a perspicuous testimony of the single commitment with which the people entrusted to his pastoral care came to the aid of Christians in need of help, with copious donations of alms. You can also recall the words of St. Ambrose, Bishop of Milan, quote, "The nobility of riches does not lie in the worldly life of the rich, but in the food given to the poor. In these sick and needy, wealth shines better. Christians must learn to procure, with money, not their own goods, but those that belong to Christ, so that Christ too may seek them." End quote. By remembering these and other things to increase your kindness, we hope that in the future the poor we are talking about can be of great help. At this point, we could end this writing, but since, in seconding our will, venerable brothers, you are about to proclaim public prayers, we do not want to neglect what day and night solicits. Quote, "Our daily perseverance, love for all churches." See 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 28. Certainly the atrocious and cruel storm that has been unleashed against the universal church for some time is before our eyes. It is terrifying to remember, quote, "with what wickedness the adversary acted against the holy." See Psalm 74, verse 3. And how dishonest is the movement against the Lord and against Christ his Son. See Psalm number 3, verse 2. We therefore warmly recommend that, taking the opportunity to call public prayers for Ireland, at the same time urge the people entrusted to your government to pray to God for the universal church. Meanwhile, to you, venerable brothers, we affectionately impart the apostolic blessing. Given at Rome, at St. Mary Major, on March 25th, 1847, the first year of our pontificate, Pope Pius IX. And there you have it. A markedly different response from the hierarchy of the church in a much different time to a, I won't say not terribly dissimilar situation as we sometimes see going on now. Again, this is why I bring to you classic encyclicals and pre-conciliar documents, so that we can get a better understanding of how things used to be in the church. Anyway, please pray for the church, and pray that our leadership will do what it needs to do in our time. Thanks for listening. I'm Anthony Stine. Ave Maria.